Welcome to my day with the Progress Singapore Party. I have two episodes lined up with candidates from the PSP, the other opposition party in Singapore which has seats in Parliament other than the Workers' Party, of course, the two NCMP seats. So welcome everyone to episode 115. So I have been told that my voice just now, it wasn't too loud. Please comment if you cannot hear. Don't WhatsApp me because I cannot open WhatsApp at the same time. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in. Hello, Harish.
Yes, hi.
I can see your sea view.
Yeah, I can. I'm sure you can see my Bukit. You can actually see Bukit Batok from here. All right,
Oh,
so
really?
you can see.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you are
the one on.
son of Bukit
I
Batok. You are a son
I'm
of Bukit
overlooking
Batok.
Bukit Batok, and then there's Bukit Timah on the right hand side. So
Okay. What an
all right.
introduction. Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so welcome, Harish. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you very much for
Yes.
the opportunity to chat, my friend.
No. I'm happy. I'm sure it's a busy period for you. So, Harish, let's get to it. Why the
Sure.
PSP? And why are you contesting now?
Why the PSP and why am I contesting now? It's actually very simple and straightforward. I've been with the PSP since 2020. I contested in the 2020 elections under the PSP banner, and at that time I did it in Tanjung Pagar. There's a 5-man team there, and when this time around, because the party decided that we are going to be relooking where we're going to be having our candidates being fielded. And when Bukit Gombak got carved out of CCK, then it made sense that we have to spend time there because we have already spent much the last 3 years, 4 years walking the ground there. So we do have a presence there. So now it's just a continuation from that perspective. So I let the, as an organization, the PSP decided that this makes sense. And so therefore I am contesting in Bukit Gombak.
So was that your preference as well? You were hedging a little bit. You said the party decided.
Well, it is a combination of a party decision as well as my decision, right? So it's not a one-way thing. It's a combined thing. So because we were looking to see whether it made sense to be, I mean, because of this requirement in GRCs to have a person in some GRCs to have somebody who is an Indian, right? So what do we do if that is the case? And so we try to balance that out, and we were able to get the right people with the right caliber and right expertise and right interest to be in the other GRCs that we are looking to contest. And so that allowed me freedom to choose where I want to be. So that's, it made it easy for me.
I was going to ask you about that later on, but since you already brought it up, we might as well address it.
Sure.
So I was looking at the PSP state, and it's Sunny Ismail is the Indian candidate in West Coast, or?
I believe he will be because he has he has received the certification that he's a minority, Indian minority from that perspective. Yeah.
So it's very interesting because it's the first time I think the PAP is doing so. It's building an Indian Muslim for the GRC, in an Indian GRC. So I think this is the first time it's happening on the PAP side.
PAP side?
PAP
or PSP side?
So Hamid Raza.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay.
So that's the first time it's happening. So it's also happening for the PSP. It's an Indian Muslim. But Hamid Raza does speak Tamil. I'm not sure does Sunny speak any Indian language?
I think he does. I can't confirm or one way or the other, but I've heard him speak. So it's just like me. I mean, I can as well, but I have heard him speak. Yes.
Okay. So why didn't you run that?
Well, it's a matter of figuring out where, in terms of experience, because I have run the previous time in 2020, so it made sense for us to take on a different place, and therefore, I can do that. And Sunny being new in this time around, so it made sense for him to be in West Coast. So it all things balanced out.
Do you think it's important, Harish, for the Indian candidate to be able to speak an Indian language? Because Indian, it doesn't have to be Indian, right? It can be Indian or others. Do you think it's important? Or?
I think the speaking the language part is probably and always good to have, but I don't think that should be in any sense a prerequisite, because it's all a matter of your own lived experience, your own life experience. Like, in my case, I can speak a few Indian languages, well, few meaning two,
So Hindi and
and
Tamil?
no, not Hindi, and Malayalam, which is my mother tongue, and Tamil,
Oh,
which I studied in school. So these are the two languages, that Indian languages, that I am more familiar with. But does that change any dynamic? I don't think so.
okay. So you don't think that strengthens you as a candidate?
I don't think that is. I don't think anybody looks at it as a criteria. Frankly, I don't think. I mean, I don't think I would look at it as a criteria. If you are going to communicate with somebody who is fluent in Tamil, or in my case as well, in Malayalam, and I can talk to them in either one, that's fine. But is that going to be a prerequisite? Because inevitably, what has the reality on the ground in any part of Singapore is that anybody who is Indian origin, Singaporean, chances are they speak English anyway. So
Right.
how important is it? It is good to do, good to have, because there are always nuances that you can convey in a different language, right? Like a joke, or an innuendo or something. It's always something fun. So that I keep it at that level. I think that's fine. But then we stick to English, and we have a common language across the board.
So basically, you don't think your ethnicity would disadvantage you since you're running an SMC, right?
Yes, I am. My ethnicity, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a Singaporean, right? So I happen to be of Indian origin, from an ancestral perspective, but I'm a Singaporean. So you treat me as a Singaporean, I'm here to support. I don't care who the person I have to deal with. It's completely separate from that perspective. It's completely transparent, because that's how I have grown up. This is the country that I have, and this is the country I have spent time defending as well. As a national serviceman, and my two sons as NS men as well. So yeah, its ethnicity is it is a component, but it's a tiny component from my
Yeah.
perspective.
So voters wouldn't care about that, you think, or not too much.
I think we have already grown out of that. That's my sense of it. Because I think we are much better by not having to worry about those kinds of stuff, because there's a lot more other things to be concerned about. With like cost of living and all this other stuff. It doesn't matter the ethnicity of the person to be able to address and manage and tackle like cost of living, right? So things like that.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm glad we got that out of the way.
All
So
right.
my mom is Malayali also, but I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't speak the language.
Malayalam. All right.
I
Okay.
don't.
Okay.
Uh, so what would your signature issue be, or signature issues be, if you get elected into parliament? What are you going to champion?
Well, there are a few things I'm looking at to do. One, of course, is the party has a bunch of areas that we are focused on. Things like cost of living, as a biggest issue. But from a personal perspective, I also am interested in making sure that we have to manage the town council, because this is now a big component in any person who's contesting in an election, and because ultimately you have to run a town council. So running the town council is something that I want to make sure that we do it well. By saying we do it well, in terms of also making sure that the technology that we're going to use is, from my perspective, and this is my lived experience as well, it has to be open source technology. It cannot be proprietary stuff, because that completely blocks off the opportunity to collaborate with other people to make the services and administrative requirements of running a town council far more efficient. So that's where I'm coming from. That's two
Could you
areas.
explain to a tech noob like myself, a social scientist, what
Sure,
the difference in what you mean? Yeah, because you're a technologist by training, right? Yeah.
Yes, I fully understand. But I just need to put the terminology out there. What
Yeah.
it ends up becoming is that I want to, firstly, let's get some fundamentals right here. When you talk about town council, the technology that needs to run the town council's administrative stuff, take collection of the conservancy fees, and then all the various contracts for cleaning, for this and that, all kinds of stuff, a lot of municipal stuff that needs to be run. Now, all of these these work that needs to be done has to have some kind of a technology to support it so that it can be more efficient, right? Now, as it turns out, the town councils that have been run by the PAP, for example, they have contracted out some entity to provide the service, which is fine. Now, who pays for these things? These come out of tax dollars. Okay, let's understand that first. Now, as it turns out, when there is a change of the leadership of a town council from one party to another party, what happened in 2011 was that the Aljunied from Workers' Party, they were denied access to continue the usage of the software that was running the town council. And they had to then scramble. They were given 1 month to put in something else to make it happen for them. This is fundamentally a problem because it has already been paid for. Now, the same group of people who are needed to be supported have to now be paying out more for another set because there's a change in the leadership. It makes absolutely no sense. Absolutely no sense. So for me, that is a flaw in our system, and it is because it is locked into the particular political party. This is a decision they took. Okay, but it doesn't have to be that way. So the way I'm looking at this, I know when there's a change, when I take over as Bukit Gombak, we will have to run a town council, and I'm hoping that we can continue to use what they have. I doubt whether we will be allowed to. So I need to be able to provide something. Now, what is this something? We're going to end up paying more money for it because it has to be bought again. But the difference in this case is whatever technology I'm going to acquire will be open technology. That means anybody can use it. And I want to make this the best possible town council management tool that other town councils, whether they are run by a PSP or somebody else, to me it doesn't matter, because ultimately you pay once for the technology from tax dollars, so everybody benefits. Let's be smart about how we do things. So that's really where I'm coming from. So this is the one important thing that I have to convey, because ultimately, if we don't run the town council well, we will have a problem, because the rest, the citizens and the voters and the constituents will be the ones who are going to be affected, and that is not acceptable.
Thank you for that. So you are okay with, even let's say if you win and then you lose it to the PAP, you are okay with that technology being used? That system.
Yeah, because I come from an open source world. Yeah. And open source world essentially means we share alike. I don't care whether I'm sharing with my competition, my business competition, or somebody else, because everybody benefits from it. It cannot be some have to win, some have to lose. Let's get everybody to win, and let's focus on what is more important. Let's don't waste money and time and effort about things that can be easily used across the board. You standardize across the board, and then you have your economies of scale. You now have the opportunity to do a much better job than what may be happening currently.
Okay, thank you, Harish. So there's a question here, or comment by Chairman Ivan. Town council should be depoliticized. Well, I don't think that's the right terminology. Everything is political, but I think what Ivan meant is that it should not be partisan, and I think we are in agreement, right?
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I think town council, we have to separate the role of a elected member of parliament from running a town council. Elected member of parliament's role is to represent the constituents in parliament, raise issues, focus on things that needs to be addressed, not municipal problems about rubbish collection and this and that. Not that those are not important. It is very important stuff. But for that purpose, we should have one way is to revert to the HDB way of doing it, because HDB was doing it previously. Right. Why don't we just do that? Yeah. But okay, and let's say
they have better expertise, they have better resources to do it.
Yeah, they are almost 70 years old as an organization. So why don't let them do it, right? But okay, let's say they don't want to do it. But why are we having to focus on this in addition to representing people in parliament? So that's really the concern. Now, if you depoliticize this, it also means that what we want to do is to make sure that we have perhaps town council elections. Who is going to run the town council? We can have for this area a town council election. Why not? I mean, a lot of other countries do exactly the same thing. the MP of that area is meant to look at all the legislative and issues of making sure that the constituents are looked after well and provided for. But running the area essentially has to be going to the town council, and that should be people local to the ground, so that you can now take care and run it in a way that makes sense for everybody.
Okay, thank you. Now, I thought that answer, which I completely agree with, but doesn't that actually go against your earlier answer? Because when I asked you what is your signature move or one policy, you didn't talk about the parliamentary aspect. You actually went immediately to the constituency.
Yeah, yes, exactly. The reason I said that, because that's the current situation that we're in.
Right.
In order to make the transition, it's going to take probably one more cycle.
Got it. So,
right? So
that's not the idea. You are just dealing with the reality. So that's why.
Yeah, I have to deal with the reality, exactly. Because on May the 4th, when I take over, I have to be able to run it.
Right.
And if I can't run it, then I have a problem. I can't go and say, we need to change this and all that. It's going to take time. In the meantime, the residents are going to be, shortchanged. And that's not acceptable.
What about in Parliament? What would be your number one issue, signature issue, or policy that you would champion for?
There are some very important things from my personal perspective. One of the things I am very, very, very concerned. I feel very disappointed and pain when I see senior citizens and the elderly having to work in as cleaners and so on in hawker centers and food courts and all that. We have a problem here. We need to make sure that these are seniors that have contributed to the country. I want to solve their problem. They shouldn't be having to do all of these things in their twilight years, in their golden years. Make sure we cater for them so they don't have to go and work like that. I want to be able to champion our seniors, because really it's a shameful from my point of view, because I have been embarrassed a few times by former colleagues of mine from other countries who came to Singapore, and we went out for a lunch, and then they see the elderly doing the cleaning of the tables and all that, and they will ask me, why are these guys doing these things? I said, well, this is part of the challenge. And at that point, I just didn't know where to put my face. So that was really fundamentally a problem for me, and it continues to be a problem. That is one aspect. So I want to champion a meaningful way, a way to live life in dignity in their golden years, without having to go and do cleaning services and stuff like that. I mean, by all means, I'm not saying they shouldn't work at all. If they want to, by all means, because it gives you meaning and purpose.
Indeed.
But it should not be because I need to put some food on the table. No, that's absolutely unacceptable. And I have had conversations with some of them. That was the reason why they're doing it. Come on, we are a country. We can do much better than this. So that's really where I'm coming from.
What would you change?
Well, I would like to say that all of our senior citizens beyond a certain age, they get a standard amount of a kind of a
UBI,
what do you call it? A UBI kind of thing. Yeah, for that. For their category, because hey, they've earned it. Let them live their life with dignity and pride, because if you think of it as your own parents, it's the same thing, isn't it? If you're okay for your parents to be going around there and doing this, and fine, let them do that. To say that they are doing this for exercise is absolutely unacceptable. So a UBI as a model is a possibility. So these are things that I want to raise, I want to bring up, and make sure that we can follow through. There's another component that I want to talk about as the other end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum in terms of age. This is for the kids, for the younger ones, So one of our manifesto, excuse me, in our manifesto, we do say that we want to introduce a stipend to be paid to those who are caregivers for children 7 and below on a monthly basis. The number that we have proposed is $1,250 a month, so that they can focus on the child, get the child managed, taken care of, instead of having to scrounge around and have a second job and whatever that they need to do to make that happen. So both ends of the spectrum, we need to look after. That's an element that will show how much care and concern we as a society have. We have to show that kind of care and compassion.
Harish, you know what the PAP response would be, right? How do we
I,
pay for it?
of course, of course, that will be their response. We can find ways to pay for it. I mean, it's always easy to say, or how do we find? Let's collectively sit down and look at our reserves, look at all our income that we have on an annual basis. Let's try and figure out a model. We can, by saying, oh, you have to propose a model. You know what? I don't have access to all the information that the
Right,
government has.
right.
So how can I? So I can only come up with ideas. And then if you turn around and say, then how are you going to fund it? Okay, the best of my ability is to look at the numbers that have been published. Maybe that's insufficient. Maybe there is something else that is also available, which I am not aware of. So this is where I come in and say, hey, by all means, please be open about it. Let's try and solve this problem. Make this a truly first world country instead of it's not really a first world country in that sense.
Totally agreed on that. I think the the part where people don't understand, I think the poverty leads to indignity. Not
Yes.
just that, and I think not
We
not
need
many
to
people understand the gravity of it.
Yeah, we need to have people with dignity. I mean, come on, let's
Yeah,
treat them as our fellow
yeah,
citizens. Why do you treat them differently? Come on, they are just as important as you are.
100%.
They may not have some additional qualifications, or it doesn't matter. They are living, breathing beings like all of us.
Yeah.
Treat them with respect. That's it. It's a very simple request. Why is it so difficult to do?
Thank you. So carry us. What are some lessons you'll take from contesting GE 2020?
Oh, lessons from 2020.
So
Haha, that's
PSP
like
did pretty well in 2020, right? But you can see that you guys overperformed for a first-time party.
Well, yeah, probably that is a fair characterization. But I would also say, there is Singaporeans are smart people. Okay, we understand, we are educated, highly literate, highly numerate. We understand these things, and there's also a sense of fair play. The fair play of, hey, we need to have different voices, different opportunities, different type of angles of concern, different viewpoints, so that we can collectively come to a better conclusion. That was what I heard in 2020 when I was walking the ground in the northern part of Tanjung Pagar, which was Moulmein and Cane Hill. That was the comment I was getting through the mask that we had to wear during the COVID period. That was the common comment I was getting. We need to have fair play. This is very unfair the way it is being done. What did they say? What do you mean by unfair?
Yeah.
Oh, it's first past the post, and then you have in the case that came out of 2020, we had almost 80% is PAP seats, and then out of 60% of popular vote. So what happened to the other percentage of people who voted? They are not represented. Their voice is not there. And as a anecdote here, I mean, on average, I think PSP across the board in 2020 we did about 40% on
Yeah,
average.
it's about 40%. Yes.
Yeah, about 40%. And all I can say is that where I was standing in Moulmein Cane Hill area in Tanjung Pagar, when I looked at the numbers from the counting center, I got about 44%. So if I got 44% as a first timer, and hearing all the comments and concerns raised by the people I had a chance to speak with, I see that there is a real pent up demand, and it validated my own observations from years of looking and talking to people.
44% is pretty high.
Well, I was surprised. I mean, let me put it slightly differently. I did post the day after or 2 days after on LinkedIn. I said, I just came out of a demo day, and I got 44% response from the people who were listening to me. And so my question to the people who are reading that post was, would you invest in my company? They say, yeah, sure, why not? I should invest in you. You got 44% interest. So I said, well, unfortunately, I cannot do anything because in this case, I'm talking about an election that I got 44%. I said, but so when you look at it from an investor perspective, from a business perspective, that's a good number. In this case, unfortunately, I can't do anything with it. Can I?
What's a good number this time, Harish? Other than
We
winning, of
win.
course.
We win. We win. I mean, we win, and we win with a very decent margin.
So for
It
you,
cannot be.
even if you got like above 45, like 47, 48, you would consider that a failure for you in your SMC?
Well, no, failure is a term that I think is, yeah, we didn't win. It doesn't mean you failed.
A disappointment?
I mean, of course you'll be disappointed. I mean, disappointment is a natural human reaction. But, so the question will be, what did I miss out this time? Or did I not cover something? Was there something else I could have done? But at the end of the day, you have to respect the decisions of the voter. If they chose that, that's what they chose, and we'll stick with it. However, if the percentage is it's neither here nor there, honestly, unless because of our system of first past the post. If this was proportional representation, then hey, good. Let's have a plurality of voices in Parliament. I think that would have been very good. But unfortunately, we are stuck with what we have. So let's work with what we have. Is 47 good? 48 good? 49 good? I don't know. But 51, of course, it'd be wonderful.
50.1 is great already, right?
Let's move the
Let's
move the
avoid a
margin.
recount, is it?
Well, not even, yeah, exactly. Just move it all the way to 60% or 70%. That'd be fine. I would like to somehow, if possible, replicate Dr. Tan Cheng Bock when he was Ayer Raja's, at that time when he was the single member constituency in Ayer Rajah. He had a very large percentage. If I can match his, that would be wonderful. Or even close to what he achieved previously.
I have relatives at my wife's side who live in Jurong. Now it's West Coast Jurong. But he still speaks very fondly of Dr. Tan, even though he retired many years ago. Still very
he has done his work, his life's work, both as a medical practitioner as well as a parliamentarian, and he has done wonderful stuff. I mean, the fact that, maybe, hopefully the listeners of this podcast, this event here, would probably be nice to know that Dr. Tan was the very first town council chairman of the very first town council. So he comes with that experience all those years ago. And the people who ran the town council then, and they are all part of the PSP today. And so we do have the opportunity to hit the road running from that perspective, just purely from that perspective.
Right. Okay, so there's an interesting question here, but I just wanted to say Dr. Tan is also the reason why parking in HDB blocks are free on Sunday. It's free on Sunday.
Yes, exactly. That's right. Yeah, so, he was the one who introduced that. Yes.
Indeed. So there's a question here by JBCDEFU. If elected, will your parliamentary style be more inclined towards Manwai or Hazel?
I think each of us come with our own styles, and I think it's not so much one or the other. It could be a mix of the two. But then again, it depends on what needs to be done. And I have my own way of engaging with people because I ask questions without fear or favor. Because it's not to put anything down or make anybody feel uncomfortable, but just to ask a fair question. And I'm prepared to be corrected if I say, yeah, I made a mistake. I think that was the wrong angle to take. I'm happy to do that. And why do I say all of this? Because I have been doing stuff in this thing, which you probably may find a bit of a challenge in the open source world. The open source world is people collaborating and writing software and building things from around the world. The vast majority of people I have never seen in person. I don't even know how they look like or anything like that. But every conversation is online, and a conversation happens. Sometimes it's very, they jab against you. Some of them are very positive. But along the way, you deal and figure out how do I address these things? Because that's how I grew for the last 35 years in terms of managing conversations with people, difficult conversations as well as easy conversations. So what would be my style? I would think it's a mix of all of that.
Thank you. So I think we are best positioned to discuss the next topic, two Indians speaking about this. So what do you make of the criticisms toward the PSP as being an anti-Indian or xenophobic party with its quote-unquote more populist stances?
I would say that was a very unfortunate characterization. Let's put it this way, okay? Manwai and I, we were classmates in secondary school, okay?
Same batch.
We went to the
batch as well.
The same lousy school, exactly. So the Shan, Manwai, and myself, we are all classmates. Okay, so it is a policy, it is an idea, it is a suggestion, it is a concern which is very valid. Now, how it needs to be addressed, you can characterize it in any way you want to, but at the end of the day, we need to ensure that Singaporeans first, to the extent that we can have Singaporeans to take up jobs that are high paying and all those characteristics that we were talking about then. So for somebody else to say, oh, you're being racist, you're being xenophobic, I think that's really unfair without having dwelled into the issues that we are trying to address. So from my perspective, it was a very unfortunate way of characterization on the part of the other side. I just leave it there because I don't think it was a meaningful exchange.
What about your on-the-ground interactions? Do people, especially Indian, Singaporean friends, do they come up to you and say, hey, I think you were being racist, or I think your kind of rhetoric promotes racism against Indians?
There was. I have to be frank and straightforward about that. Yes, there were some people who came up to me and said that. Then I tried to ask them, why do you think that is so? This is where comments can be made easily. But when I asked them, why do you think that is so? They didn't have an answer. So when I tried to say, okay, let's sit down and figure out what is it that we're trying to address here. And it took a bit of a conversation. Eventually, they said, yeah, you know what? It makes sense. At the first instance, it was just, a lot of it was just knee-jerk reactions. Says, oh, this is racist, this is xenophobic. It was not. It may not have come across well enough for whatever reason. But if you look at the crux of the issues, that was nothing to do with a particular racial group, and it's got nothing to do with that. We are trying to do the right thing for us, for Singaporeans. If it happens to be that there is this thing here, anybody can throw a label at it and say, oh, therefore that's the reason. Right. That's not right.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back
policy conversations just by throwing around racism or xenophobia.
Yeah, I every time someone will again, a lot of times the way the conversation will go is something called whataboutism. Yeah. What about that? What about this? So I say, look, it's not what about it, okay? Let's just focus on this particular one and let's just dive into it and figure it out. Some of them had very good rationale in how they came to the conclusion, which I say, I agree with you. Now, honestly, if you ask me now what was, I don't remember, but I do remember, I can see his face. I remember he said, okay, I said, okay, I agree with what you're saying. But there were others who said, you know what, I just heard about this, I read a little bit here, I read a little bit there, and so on, and I came to some conclusion. I said, but then did you even delve into it? Did you dive deeply into it? If you didn't, then you're not being fair to yourself to come to a conclusion. So can we have a conversation? Let's try and figure this thing out. And I would say, I wouldn't say 100% agreed with my perspective, but I think the vast majority, whoever the people I spoke to, which probably would number maybe between 10 to 20 people over the years, they say, okay, that makes sense. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, that's it. Case closed. So we just moved on.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So, do you think that the PSP is now a Leong Man Wai party instead of Dr. Tan? Or maybe it's not a Leong Man Wai party, but has Leong Man Wai surpassed surpassed Dr. Tan in terms of popularity or even in terms of association with the party?
I think that goes into personality politics, and I don't think that's what we want to do. Definitely not, because I don't think that's the right way to do any of these things. Because ultimately, yes, we are dealing with human beings here, and yes, Dr. Tan started the party, but has one person overlapped the other person or otherwise? Leave it to history to tell, because I don't think that's what we want to do. We are not driven by personality. We want to do a good job. We want to look after Singaporeans. We want to be the empathy and compassionate with Singaporeans. Now, if you say, oh, who's going to overshine or outrun somebody else, that's a conversation which is I think you can leave it in the coffee shop, because that's really not what you want to do. Because there will obviously human beings are like that. We
Okay.
want to have all these conversations. Fine, have the conversation, but it's really not what we want to do.
All right. So I
That's
think
really not what.
that's an excellent answer, but I don't want to leave it at the coffee shop. I'm drinking Teh Tarik.
Okay, well, okay. I leave it at the Teh Tarik shop.
So the reason I ask is, you are right. I think ultimately ideally we focus on policies and so on,
Yes,
ideologies and policies, but personalities do matter. Right? For
it
instance,
does matter. Of course, it does
Pritam is
matter.
more popular than any WP candidate,
Yeah,
even though they all have the same ideology. Likewise, for
yeah.
Tharman or even PM Lawrence Wong is more popular. So
I would
I guess
agree.
that
I would agree with that. I would agree with it. It's just that I think to say one is better than the other, that doesn't serve any useful purpose other than to have a conversation over Teh Tarik.
okay, okay. Let's do that. Let's do that in real life. Okay. Thank
I
you.
want a Teh Tarik si kosong. Okay, so
No, no, no. That one is a red flag, man. How is
red flag.
it?
Si kosong,
Teh
Teh
Tarik.
Tarik si kosong.
Teh Tarik is Teh Tarik, man. No C,
I,
no.
I don't want any extra sugar inside. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, so what is your party's stand on one of the most important issues I think of our time, Palestine? What
Yeah.
is your own stand? I think we have seen something significant in this election, which is it has entered an election manifesto. And just a few years ago, nobody could have imagined that that would have happened. So that is WP stand. What
Yeah.
is what is your stand? Maybe personal stand or your party stand?
Well, I think Manwai had posted this shortly after the incidents in Palestine, in Gaza. I think we have said, they have to vacate, they have to leave the place, they have to let the UN mandates that have been neglected and ignored by Israel. We need to fix that problem because this is an ongoing, continuous. All my life, this is the same story I've been hearing. I'm someone who's outside listening to it. You get tired of it.
Mm.
Why is this still ongoing? And the people who live there. I mean, let me put a personal take to this. When I was in school in the United States, I had a classmate of mine. His name is Walid. He is a Palestinian. He's a Palestinian. He's an engineer. He's a fantastic guy. He showed me his passport. His passport is called a travel document issued by the state of Israel. He doesn't have a Palestinian passport or anything of that nature. And he can only go from a certain place to a certain other place. Why is that the case? This person, my classmate, was in the 1980s. Why is this still an ongoing thing? Why is this the case? Isn't this enough is enough? How many more lives have to be sacrificed? How many more egos need to be rubbed along the way? We have said, from a PSP perspective, we have already said we need to stop this thing, cease fire straight away, go back to the previous boundaries, and fix the problem with everybody coming to the table and sorting this thing out. The challenge we have here is there is a lot of pent-up anger, and I frankly don't know how to handle that part. I don't know what the remedy would be. But this is something we need to recognize collectively. There's a lot of vested interest in all of this. And as a Singaporean looking into this, it's actually very painful.
I
When I
appreciate
look,
that answer, Harish.
yeah, it's
I
very
really,
painful.
I really.
I look at the map of Singapore. I mean, I do have a map of Singapore somewhere here, and I overlaid with Gaza. So if you overlay Gaza on Singapore, you go from somewhere near Seletar and going all the way south and go past into like Jurong Island, and it's very, very narrow. Where I am in the western side, it will be not part of Gaza. The east coast area is not part of Gaza, so it's one long strip.
Mm.
That is the place these 2 million people have been living in squalid conditions, placed there like that, which is why. I mean, I have visited Israel and I've seen how one side of the street lives and the other side
Yeah.
lives in squalor. Why is this the
Yeah.
case? Enough is enough. But okay, there is a lot more historical stuff we can talk about, but we
I
talking about each
appreciate
other the same
I
solve
appreciate. So
anything.
I think we're on the same page with that. So bringing back to Singapore, right?
Yeah.
When you go on the ground, do people talk to you? What is the demographic? The young people ask you about this, or is this a non-issue and electorally? So is it
It's,
because of
I
it?
think, yeah, the cost of living is the biggest issue here, lah. I mean, this particular one is a little bit outside the scope and, outside, off the radar. Uh, Not that it is not important, but it's
Yeah, yeah.
off the radar because the primary concern is, putting food on the table and your rise in, cost of living. I think that's really the primary concern.
What would you do differently from the government? As in, because the government has also said similar things to you as well. What would
I,
you do different?
I can't see that being any different from.
Yeah,
I mean, this is pure common sense. Just do this thing, get it
yeah,
done. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who says it.
yeah,
The
yeah.
right thing can be said by anybody, right? Just make this happen. Enough. The United Nations is there for a reason. Why are we still going around? I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure how old you are, Walid, but I remember in 1967 I remember this headline. I was like 6 years old or 7 years old. This headline, I think it was on the newspaper or somewhere. It says the Middle East war has started. So I I asked my dad, what is a Middle East? What is Middle East? What is middle of what?
Mm,
I had no concept of what it is.
mm,
And when it started, then I said, okay, then I didn't read much into it at that time because I was just way over my head on that one. But that was when I was like primary two, and all these years later, it is still the case. Come on, how much more lives need to be sacrificed, and how much more pain needs to be suffered by people? Enough. And the reason I say all of this is also because, in 2004, when the tsunami happened, right, in Banda Aceh, in the Indian Ocean, I was a reservist, as a civil defense officer, and I got mobilized. I go there and see the destruction of how nature kills with just water. And if nature does that, and human beings are doing the same thing against other human beings, it's untenable. It just makes no sense to me. And it's very painful when you look at it that way. Enough is enough.
mm. Okay, thank you so much. I have a question on, and this is not me asking it, but a lot of
Okay.
people have asked that the PSP is a party of very old people. Right? Now, you are not old, but you're older than other candidates from other parties, right? You said you're about what, 65 now? Or is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
is. Yeah.
so I don't think it's a fair question because if you're healthy enough, you're young enough or you're old enough, I think. But how would you respond to it?
Okay. Because the organization is relatively new, it takes time for it to build up, and it started off by Dr. Tan, being, stepping forward and make this happen. And yes, at its start, yeah, there were relatively older people who were in the CEC and also, which is completely correct. But what we have actively done in the last 5 years is to recruit younger people into the party as members, as volunteers, doing the many different roles that an organization requires. Now, in order to stand in parliament, stand for elections and get a seat in parliament, that requires a different personality, a different way of approaching things. And I think what we are trying to do is to ensure that we have younger people below 30, I'm sorry, below 40, below 35, to step forward, help them to get onto this because there is value in this, because it's not just for themselves, None of us are doing this for ourselves. We are doing things for the next generation. I look at it for the next generation. So we need to get the younger people to get on board, and that takes time. That really does take time. And I think we are on the track to get to being a point where, the average age, actually, I'm not sure what the average is. Maybe the average is about 40, 45 or something like that of the candidates. I think that's a reasonable time because you have reached a certain station in life. Your family is,
Yeah.
moving, doing whatever they're doing. And I think that's when you can contribute. That's how I got into the fray.
I was
You know,
gonna
by
ask actually, does it make sense that actually for a new opposition party, that
Mhm.
the initial median age was much higher because people who are older, if you're younger, you're worried about career and so on and the
Yeah.
opportunities that you may lose. Whereas people like you are more stable at a different stage of your life, you're able to be more gung ho. Is
I
it
think that is I think that is an important component, right? The thinking behind it is that extremely valuable. I mean, I use myself as an example. I mean, I have two boys, and they are doing well and fine. And so with my wife and I say, okay, what is it that we can give back to the country? What is it that we can do? So this became an opportunity. Say, okay, you know what? I will step into this and see what I can offer. Because really, if we don't step up to it, who is going to step up to it?
step up?
Step up and do something about it. Get people, the younger people will be a challenge. I completely understand that. Would I have done the same thing when if I was 30 years old? Well, I got so many other things to do when you're 30 years old. This becomes a small item, right? But as you grow older, your family gets, moving on and they get older, your kids are, getting, being independent and doing stuff. Then the component that you can spend time on, which is in my case right now, becomes much wider, and you got more time, more meaningful time you can spend. That's one of the reasons also I said, I've stated this, that I will be a full-time MP in Bukit Gombak, because I want to hit the ground running. I want to understand what's going on. I want to take the buses with the residents. I want to take the trains with the residents. I want to go to the shops. I want to talk to them. I want to understand. And then see what needs to be done. It has to be a full-time job. And so that's how I'm coming towards. And in order to be a full-time, in some of the aspects of your life have to be sort of settled or managed by somebody else. I don't envy people who can, balance all of those things when they're much younger. I mean, power to them. But, for me, that was not what I did at that point in time.
Okay. I want to pick your brain on the final topic, since we are running out of time.
Sure.
So AI, and our government has almost wholeheartedly embraced AI, and even MOE from the start, Minister Chan Chun Sing said that, oh, this is something we should embrace and so on. And I actually like Minister Chan Chun Sing. This is my quibble with him, sort of, that I am very skeptical of AI, because I'm very skeptical, especially just coming from an educator's perspective. It makes students much lazier. You don't even Google anymore. You don't even check source. You just go to ChatGPT and so on. So I've never used ChatGPT in my life. I've never used AI, but I assume you are far more embracing of AI than me, or am I wrong?
The answer will be yes. I do use it. Okay, I would embrace it and so on. But let me put a caveat there and say, okay, where do I come? How did I get to that point? Right? I started doing stuff in AI in 1988 when I was in graduate school. Those days, AI was it was some things that you can do with my professor and I. We were doing some stuff which is around smart expert systems and so on. So you want to have a medical expert system to find out what medication someone requires and all that. Fairly simple, relatively speaking, from today's context, but it was very interesting then. But that didn't excite me enough. And over the intervening 30 years, I focused on other areas. And in the last 10 years, I see, hey, now there are more and more interesting ideas and algorithms and methodologies that is becoming useful, that we can actually make good use of. And so the generative AI stuff, which happened 3 years ago, is where it hit the limelight, as it were, and say, hey, now we can do stuff. But the thing is, the problem we have right now, and Singapore in some sense is, although we're leading the charge in some of the areas, we need to educate people. We need to get people to continuously understand that you need to have critical thinking done from day one. You need to always.
How? The moment we embrace it, that is gone, right?
No. I know that's actually not true. That is absolutely not true. You don't embracing it doesn't mean you stop thinking, right? No, you don't. You embrace it, just like I mean, how many of us use a calculator all the time? A lot of us, but we still do simple math in our heads. Okay, I need to get 20 cents back. I get 20 cents. I don't have to calculate how much is, how much do I get when I give you a dollar bill, a dollar coin for 80 cents. How much do I get back? I know I need to get 20 cents back. I don't have to calculate that. Some of those things we are innately done.
So it's interesting to use that example, because initially math teachers were against the calculator being implemented, and I feel like I'm one of those now. Like, I'm really against it. I'm a bit of a dinosaur, I admit, but I do feel that there's value in just giving this counter argument as well, just to get us thinking. we cannot just wholeheartedly embrace all these things and then lose our
No,
sense of
yeah,
humanity.
you don't wholeheartedly
Yeah.
engage without thinking.
Mm.
We have to do whatever you do. I mean, if I give you a knife and say, hey, Walid, just use this thing, for whatever you want to use it for. If you don't know any better, you just use it and, you end up cutting yourself. So I have to educate you. I have to show you. I have to teach you along the way. So the same thing applies in this particular case of generative AI solutions. We need to teach people, show them how to use it, especially our seniors. They are already struggling with mobile phones.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, okay, where is the icon? Because the eyesight is not good enough, and then the font size is not. They're already struggling with that. You want to throw in this into the mix, that makes it even more frustrating from their point of view. Once a person is frustrated using a piece of technology, you have lost the person already, because
Right.
they're not going to come back to that. So
Right.
we need to be smarter. I mean, this is a flaw on many parts and many people. One group is the engineers, people like me, building the wrong tools without thinking through the user experience. And on the other end will be people who are the VCs and all, trying to push and trying to make as much money as they can and do whatever they want to do. So we have this conundrum in front of us in this particular case. Now, this is where I have been in this space for a long enough time. I understand the nuances. What the onus is on me and my fellow engineers to say, hey, look, we need to continuously educate our people, no matter who you are. You're the child, you are in primary one, you're in kindergarten, I don't care. Use these tools, but I will guide you along. I show you how to use it. Because when you do that, you find very, very interesting outcomes. And you need to come back and say, hey, look, the methodology, the pedagogy here is you need to have critical thinking.
Mm.
You need to
Right.
say, just because I read this, is it correct? Is it right? Is it wrong? Where did it come from? Can you go and check? And so on. When a child looks at it, the child is new. They don't know anything else. You can tell them anything when they believe it, right? You can see that in small kids. They believe you because that's how children are.
So you're saying that Singapore is not a smart nation?
When I say Singapore is not, we are a smart nation in many places, but not very smart in other places. And
So
I do have,
the technology
I do have
that,
a.
yeah,
No, go ahead. Yeah.
the smart nation thrown by the government, do you think that has been successful?
I think by and large it has been successful, but
Mm.
there are a lot of gaps in between. Okay, and a classic gap, which I have a blog post already ready to go, will be about how we as candidates have to do what we need to do to sign up to become a candidate, the paperwork that needs to go through, and all those things. A
Yeah,
lot of it, pretty much the bulk of it, is done electronically. But on nomination day,
yeah,
it's on paper.
yeah,
The same PDF, which is
yeah,
electronically, which is with the elections department, I now have to print on paper
yeah.
and bring copies of the same thing back to them, and and so that they can then look at it and say, okay,
That
oh,
has
there's a
to go.
mistake
That
here.
has to go for the next election, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
I mean, it has
It
to
has
be,
to go.
but
Yeah,
this is ridiculous. I mean, come
yeah.
on, you
It
want to
is.
call yourself a smart nation?
100%.
I'm sorry, we are
Yeah,
not. We are not. There are a lot of gaps in between as well. I mean, some of the gaps are very obvious. Some of the gaps are, it's more of a policy decision, which I say, okay, maybe there was a compromise made, and then now the term called a fallacy of the sunken cost.
yeah,
So the ERP 2.0 is a fallacy of the sunken cost. Like we
yeah.
are
Oh
still
my
proceed
God,
with
I
it.
don't know why they thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, it took $564 million over a period of 10 years to get to what it is. And it's expected to last for 10 years.
It's,
Meanwhile, in the 10 years, our phones, the phone that you and I are using today and now, are really just, within the last 2 years
yeah,
in terms of how
change.
advanced
Yeah.
it is. Yeah. How am I going to change all the cars and stuff like that, which is ridiculous? How did we get there? I just don't know why.
Okay.
So yeah, so we are smart, yes, but there are a lot of gaps in between.
Can do that. Thank you so much, Harish. Final question,
All right.
light-hearted one. Who's your
Okay.
favorite PAP MP other than Taman and Louis Tang?
Who's my favorite PAP MP? I think I kind of like Prime Minister. I think I have respect for him. I think he comes across very well. I think in one of my LinkedIn posts I did say that, you know, I am happy to call him my prime minister because I think
Agreed.
he has done well. Yeah.
Agreed. And I think actually his personal popularity is much higher than his party popularity, I think. But we'll find
Oh,
out. We'll find
you'll
out.
find out. We'll find
Yeah.
out. We'll find out.
Yeah. What were you gonna say that you agreed or?
No, I would agree that he's, you know, because I think he's personable. I think I like
Yeah.
people who have the wherewithal to be vulnerable and to be able to be frank about it and speak well. And you know, I personally have that respect for him. But at the end of the day, because of the way the system is run, you know, someone has to win and therefore someone has to lose. So, you know,
So
can we
he'll
work
be
on
up
this
against this one.
together?
Yeah. He'll be up against this one. But
Yeah,
thank you.
it's
That
we'll,
was really a conciliatory note. So I appreciate that. And hopefully that's the spirit in which the elections are being fought on. So the
I hope
elections
so
department
too.
already say there's no negative campaigning. So
Yeah.
hopefully the PAP, the opposition, all of them engage
Yeah,
in
I think we have to
construct.
keep it at a up higher level. You know,
Agreed.
we can
Agreed.
do much better. We can do
Online,
much
there
better.
will be online. Online,
Let it
yeah.
be. It's
Exactly.
fine.
Let it be, right? The
Let it be.
politicians should be above that.
Just grow a thick skin and you'll be fine.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much, Harish. It's
All
been a
right.
pleasure, and all the best for your election.
Thank you, Walid. Thank you
Thank
for the
you. So,
opportunity to chat
yeah.
and you know, progress for Singapore.
Yes. Okay. Bye bye. Good night,
All right.
everyone.
All right. Cheers.